The Darmoshark M3s Mini was a pretty hyped up mouse that I really wanted to try and fall in love with, but it's not quite for me. I wanted to go over why, and I wanted to give you guys 3 other recommendations for very affordable high performance mice. So, I'll start out with what I did like about it. Um, so traditionally, I like small ambies, and I did really like that this has steep finger grooves. Not quite the level of like MZ1, but more like I've got a Pulsar X-Lite V3, and it's more in line with that, perhaps a little bit more even. The other thing I really liked are the skates. They're nicely rounded, pretty big. Mouse has on-dongle storage too, which I think is just a easy thing that all manufacturers should include. The switches feel pretty good. The actual click feel implementation I'll talk more on later, and the build quality seems good. There's not really any flexing. It does seem like a pretty well put together mouse, and I also opted for the like neon yellow color. I do like that there's some options other than white and black. It also comes with a 2K hertz receiver, which is neat. But let's move on to what I wasn't a huge fan of, starting out with the shape, which is the main thing for me. I usually really like small ambies, but the sides, particularly the right side, I just felt like I could never get a good grip on. It just feels too flat, like one-dimensional sort of. I mean, there's this curvature to it, but as far as an actual ledge, there's not really any. It's pretty flat. But that's the thing. I don't mind flat mice like this X6, which is like a Pulsar X2 clone. This has flat sides, and I still feel like I can get a really solid grip on this, whether I'm gripping far forward, where it's a little bit wider, or more back in the middle, where the actual grip width is. This feels very comfortable, and I don't want to say locked in, but yeah, definitely I am assisted in lifting here with my ring finger. On the Darmoshark, guess I just don't have that. It just seems too vertical, even though it does have this scoop. Next is on the shape. The higher hump, I thought this would be a bit more like a Razor Viper with a taller hump. It turns out, even though it has this pointed aesthetic, the hump feels very rounded. So if you do grip far forward, the hump fills your palm quite a bit and prevents me from really being able to track downward, micro correct downward very far. Let's see, the buttons are all right. If you click right where the switches are, which is about in line with the scroll wheel, the clicks feel very good. But if you click it all far forward, there's just all this overhang and you end up bending the plastic. I think it's just that these shell buttons are really long and they don't maybe have a lot of support to them. So pressing down, you're bending them in addition to pressing the spring on the switch. So it makes them feel a little bit spongy, maybe? Yeah. The scroll wheel isn't great either. The steps on the encoder aren't very noticeable. I mean, I guess they're there, but they're just pretty light. They're not terrible. Maybe I'd say like a 3 or 4 out of 10 in terms of if 5 is kind of the average. They're a little bit on the lighter side. Middle mouse doesn't feel great. It is on a micro switch, but the implementation seems too stiff. It's actually easier for me to depress it going at a 45 angle here rather than straight down. Gets very stiff. And then the scroll wheel construction, I think it's just this whole rubber band. It just feels cheap, like a rubber band wrapped around a plastic wheel. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's what all scroll wheels are, but something about this one just feels cheap. The side buttons implementation's pretty good. Not really any pre-travel, a bit of post-travel, nothing unusable, but the front button is too small. I really wish that it extended further forward or that these were dropped down closer to the pad. Yeah, I guess that pretty much does it. Oh, the other thing I didn't like is the surface texture. I don't think there's any sort of coating to this, but the texturing, it's a pretty gritty matte, a lot like the Razer Orochi V2. Or other Razer mice tend to be really gritty like this. I tend to polish my mice down like I did to this M-Chose A5. I like glossy or semi-glossy like this because I have drier hands, but yeah, this is just way too slippery for me. In addition to not having a ring finger ledge, I just could never really feel locked in on this ever without just squeezing hard. So, I want to go over some alternatives then, if this isn't my favorite. We have the Red Dragon M916, also known as the G49. This is a 4K Hertz capable mouse. It has a rear hump just like the Darmoshark, but the bottom shape you can tell is a bit different. So the sides here are a bit more flat. You can especially see that in the side profile. But you still have this hump for a nice pinky rest. The buttons themselves are pretty flat. Maybe a really minor amount of grooving to it. The side buttons are pretty good. I would say just like the Darmoshark. They're not like super high quality feeling, but nothing offensive either. The texturing on this, it looks a little wonky, but I actually kind of like that. You can feel it in your thumb distinguishing between the two. The downside to this mouse, I would say, is the scroll wheel. Again, that sort of like rubber band around a plastic wheel is how it feels. Very quiet wheel, but like no tactility to the steps. It's not super easy to do one step at a time. Big pluses to this mouse though are, first of all, it's a 4K Hertz compatible mouse. You can get the 1K Hertz for a few dollars cheaper, but the 4K was like only $3 more. I think this was from AliExpress, like $24, $25 shipped. The other awesome thing is the weight. So with a battery mod and cutting up the base like I have here, it's down to 41 grams, which for a mouse its size is just nuts. The Darmoshark comes in at I think 55, 56. Yeah, this feels way lighter. Option number 2, if you still want to keep with a tall rear hump like the Red Dragon or the Darmoshark, is the Attack Shark X6. It's a Pulsar X2 clone, size like 1.5, a little bit bigger than a mini, a little bit smaller than a medium. The hump to it's a little bit more pointed than the X2. Not as pointed as the Red Dragon though. It does have charging dock support, which is pretty cool, on mouse dongle storage. The skates are black, so you'd think they're pretty cheap, but they actually are nice and quiet, on the slower side, of course. This comes in at 57 grams. If you wanted to weight reduce it, I'm sure you could get rid of the DPI buttons and charging dock stuff. Still has pretty decent finger grooves. It feels a lot like an X2 in terms of finger grooves. The sides are very flat. So if the flat sides were attracting you to the Darmoshark, I think this is just a better execution of that. You just feel a little bit more locked in just because there's I think the ever so slightest little bit more angle. That and this sort of scalloping just feels off to me. I like it on the final mouse Starlight 12, but it just feels like it was made in a computer, not molded by a person's hand in clay. It just feels a little awkward. Scroll wheel and buttons all feel excellent on this. The scroll wheel, the buttons are pretty loud, but very spammable. Scroll wheel is excellent, nice notchy detents. Not super spammable. I guess the only downside to this is side buttons rather small. They don't protrude very far. And then if you don't care about the charging dock, I guess that's adding unnecessary weight. But this guy comes in around the same price as the Darmoshark. This is, I think, around $45 US on Amazon. Probably cheaper, maybe $30 or so on AliExpress. And then another top recommendation that is definitely slept on is the M-Chose A5. This is a G Pro Superlight Mini. I absolutely love this mouse. The G Pro Superlight, I'm just kind of, it's good. But this mini version feels excellent. And it's not just a, oh yeah, it looks like a mini, but it actually doesn't feel like one. This 100% feels like one. Very subtle, I don't even want to say comfort grooves, comfort detents in the buttons. Very flat sides with a little bit of a G Pro Superlight-esque rib right here that's not showing up on my crappy web camera. Really overall rounded shape. If you do a tilt grip at all, or you grip in an awkward spot, it's all very rounded and soft feeling. Big improvement over the G Pro is the side buttons. These are excellent, big, poppy, with a really nice fast rebound, very easy to spam, and located nice and low on the mouse. Centralized hump, overall feels pretty like flat, even though it looks bulbous. But I think that's just because it's a overall kind of flat mouse. And you can get this in different colors. They just released magnesium versions that are even lighter, at an 8K hertz polling one. This one is the 1K hertz, and I think this was around $24, $25 shipped from AliExpress. So, with all that said, I think the Darmoshark, it's not inherently a bad mouse, but moving forward into 2024, I think there's like already some better options on the market, not to mention things that are still yet to be released, like Deluxe's M600 and such. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave them down below in the comments and I'll try to respond. Yeah, thank you for watching.